Well, welcome everybody. My name is Jeremy Royster, and I'm a 6th grade social studies teacher. I'll confess, first of all, that as a student, I didn't even like social studies, and it wasn't until I finished my formal social studies education that I actually developed a passion for it. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I have Mel Gibson to thank for it. Some of you may be familiar with Mel's blockbuster hit, Braveheart. Yeah, that's a pretty recent picture, I think. Braveheart, great entertainment, not so great history, but I didn't know that when I watched it for the first time. So I was completely enthralled, and out of just desire to enrich myself, looked into the William Wallace character on my own, and found that there actually were no kilts at that time, not for another 300 years, nor was there any blue face paint, not since 1,000 years prior. And Bruce, the character that betrayed Braveheart, or William Wallace in the film, that didn't happen. Nor was there a romance with Isabella of France. So she couldn't offer him any pain-killing medicine right before his execution. And he, in fact, maybe didn't even scream freedom when he was executed, one of the more powerful scenes in the film. So I realized that maybe this wasn't the only instance where I had been hornswoggled by a blockbuster film, and started to become curious about what other influences had distorted my view of reality. So that philosophy, that desire to figure out the answer to that question has been the cornerstone of my approach to teaching for the last 19 years. This truth-sleuthing idea, you saw the title on the screen there before, it's going to become central to my use of film in the classroom. I'll introduce the concept of truth-sleuthing to you the way I introduce it to my students, my 6th graders. Raise your hand if you ran truth-sleuthing in elementary school. I said truth-sleuthing. Raise your hand if you had truth-sleuthing in elementary school. Make sure you keep your arms and legs tucked under your desks so that you don't get in reverse on the edge. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3, go! Wow, did you get a Royster? You guys have heard that shit? Seen the movies based on my life? Nah. Okay. I now have all of your journals in a secret location. Ready? We got 3, 2, 1. So where's this time capsule? I know he's going to figure it out. Where is it? I saw Indiana Royster drop a Sharpie with a green cap onto the tile. Green? Yes. Okay. I think the evidence is becoming overwhelming. A Sharpie. Sharpie dropping out of the snow that was green. I'm really concerned that this is what happened. All I would need is an artifact from the event itself. But in the absence of such an artifact, I'm going to have to assume that you guys, that the journals are correct. I'm going to assume, therefore, that it was a green Sharpie on the floor that was dropped from What?
That's it. That's it. It's a red Sharpie.
This is red.
Yeah, I got the red cap. Oh my God. Somebody's talking.
So what do we do? Protect ourselves. As truth sleuths, how do we make sure we get the truth? Young lady? She said, what she said. The more sources you get, the less likely you are just to make a mistake, to get the wrong information. You put on your skeptical glasses, you put on your truth-sleuthing caps, and you scrutinize. Go for
So again, spine travel.
Spine
Where
travel?
does it come from?
So the idea is to put the power in the student's hands. I realized the reason that I didn't like social studies as a student is because I was being given information and told, you need to know this. Once I started recognizing the sources that I had access to as an adult, I started to take an interest. One other brief film that was an eye-opener to me. This is how many of you are familiar with the Texas textbook controversy of a few years ago? Okay. Well, here's a little introduction.
Look around us and look at nature, look at all the plants, the complexity, look at us, look at our hand. It used to be you would look out and you see the God that created it. And now people walk outside and see blind, purposeless nothing.
As we may be getting an overhaul in Texas, as the State Board of Education is set to vote on new curriculum standards, the new guidelines are splitting the state between those who say conservative politicians are trying to indoctrinate students, and others who say it's about time the state remove the liberal bias that they see in books.
You've created a hornet's nest like I've never seen here.
A bunch of lay citizens on the State Board of Education, and we want to make sure that our children are taught good, solid American history, and I think we're in step with most of the majority of Americans.
If you want to control and shape the politics of the state, controlling and shaping what students learn in public schools from age 5 through age 18 is a really, really smart strategy.
Our religion says that we're all created in the image of God. And every little child is created in the image of God. I want us to think of the best opportunity possible.
The high school classroom is no place to fight the culture wars. What you are discussing now is whether you will teach the integration of evolution, which is a long-time creationist strategy to promote creationism through that time.
We say on this day, your building done in public education once again.
I like to believe we are living today in the spirit of the Christian religion, governed by Christian principles.
It will change the face of our state for decades to come. It matters.
We have taken on the far left in the last several years, and we have won. We are turning education in a vastly different direction. So thank you.
This comments, I think, mostly on the influence of politics on social studies education, but also on science education. Regardless of your political leanings, there is an influence on our textbooks, and if that is the only source we're providing our students, then we might be doing them a disservice. And that was something that I started to recognize in my first year of teaching. I'm hoping that film is going to be one of the sources you're able to provide your students at this class. The 21st century skills I mentioned earlier. Now, if you look at all the lists of the 21st century skills, all of them tend to agree on at least these 4 things, that in order for students to succeed as adults in the 21st century, they're going to need to have global thinking skills, creativity skills, communication skills, and critical thinking. So with the use of film, it is possible to expand their horizons and introduce them to cultures and regions that they might not otherwise have been exposed to in a three-dimensional, emotional way in many cases. Because if you can engage your students with the characters in a film, then the surroundings of that film, the environment of that film, are going to become more interesting to them. You can also help them certainly with their communication skills. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of films that I've edited in ways that highlight some of the vocabulary that they might not otherwise understand and might just sort of ignore when the film is going on. Star Wars, for example. Here's a scene from the first episode, not the first one ever played, but the number 1. How many are Star Wars fans here? Anybody? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about? Number 1. Okay. Well, there's a lot of talk about government in there. I'll show you a greater snippet of this later on. I actually teach my students about the Constitution using Star Wars, or used to when I have that curriculum. Senator, what's a senator? Well, you can use film to help them care about what a senator is and also understand it. And also you can help them enrich their creativity. Their critical thinking skills, yes. Here, I'm going to show you an example of a lesson I did recently this year, actually. Sorry. Yeah, using my website, so I'll give you all access to the website. I made not only film sources about Lawrence of Arabia. Anyone familiar with Lawrence of Arabia? So I showed them the whole film originally, and then took some clips from the film and challenged those clips, challenged the portrayal of those events in the film with some actual documented sources. So this gives them an opportunity to think critically about the film itself and about all media. And then finally, creativity. And this is something I haven't even tried yet, but something that is a possibility, which is to have, once you learn some of the skills about how to use film in your class, you can actually have your kids do too. If you have the technology available, or if they have the technology at home, they can build their own little clips and challenge the accuracy of the clips by doing their own research, which is something we're going to be doing in class.